Welcome to the S.O.A.P video series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We have come to the end of our survey of 1 Samuel. We have 4 chapters left, relatively short chapters we were just mentioning. Yeah. And we'll do those.
Always great being at the end, isn't it?
We're at the end of the book. Now, what's interesting is that 1 Samuel leads right into 2 Samuel, right? If it, so
we're not at the end.
We're not technically, but we're just going through 1 Samuel. We're come to the end of that, and so set us up, and we'll finish.
Yeah. So as we found out last week, Saul continued to try to kill David, and
even after promising not to multiple times.
Right, exactly. So David, not that he gets smart, but he decides on a different tactic because he knows at some point Saul's going to get lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So he actually moves into a town. A Philistine town. Yeah. And there's a king there, and he and the king have a relationship, maybe a little dodgy on David's side. he doesn't seem to disclose everything.
All the information, maybe.
Yeah, because David is spending his time going around to different villages in the Philistines and wiping them out.
Yeah, and
because there's a war going on.
Yeah, southern Judah, so there's Amalekites he's taking out, and some other people that honestly shouldn't be there anyway, so that's fine. He's got to keep himself busy.
So this is our last week, and we're going to see a bunch of things. We're going to see David misleading a king, right? And might be this king we just talked about. We see Saul consulting a witch, so we have a witch in the Bible. We see the Philistines going to war against Israel, and we see David fighting in this war, and which side is he going to be fighting on is a big deal, and we see Saul dying. Yeah. So there's a lot of action going on in here,
it's a busy
and there's a lot of background
chapters
in here too. Yeah. All right, so war is coming to this area, and we're starting with chapter 28 here. As we said, David has been hitting these villages on the Philistine side, and the king says to him, "Hey, you're going to be fighting in this war, right? And this war is against Israel and the Philistines." And David's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, so let me set this up.
But he's a little vague.
Yeah, because the Philistine territory, and where David is working, that's in the way southern part of Israel. Okay, so when it says Negev, that's the southern part. Okay. The war itself that they're setting up for is way in the north. This is called the Valley of Jezreel. And we'll see there's a town called Endor, not the planet from Star Wars, but there's a little village called Endor. And that's in the northern part. And Jezreel is the plain where Antichrist in the future will be gathering all the armies to set up his attack on Jerusalem. Because it's a huge plain up in northern Israel, and lots of battles actually took place, and this will be one of them in the Valley of Jezreel. But in the future, Antichrist will use that as a staging area just before Jesus comes back. So these chapters are really David's working in the south, but they're really planning the staging in the north. So we're really taking up all of Israel. All of Israel, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So just to place ourselves where we're at.
Thank you for that. And it's safe to say that Saul and his base were up north.
Yeah, they're moving.
Also,
they're moving north.
Where David was more south.
Yeah. So there's going to be a separation now between Saul and David.
That happens.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So Samuel is dead. The namesake for the book, and Saul. We keep saying how bad he was. He actually did some good things.
Nice. And it wasn't a great.
And one of the good things he did was he removed the mediums and magicians from the land.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, right? And this is commendable. It's also, the Mosaic law says thou shalt not.
Yeah, right.
Either have idols or worshiping someone else.
Yeah, consult with the dead. You're not supposed to consult with the dead, which is some necromancy and that type of thing.
Yeah, but when Saul saw the Philistine army, right, and the size of it, he was terrified.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He actually went to God.
Yeah, he prayed.
He went to God. He prayed. He inquired of God. I think I said, at least mine said. Yep. And God didn't respond.
Nope.
So
Not in any of the ways. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it specifically mentions not by dreams, not by the Urim, which is the priests, and not by the prophets. So he tried everybody. He tried to get a hold of God, and God's not answering.
Well, a little late, right?
Well, too little, too late, right?
Yeah. Which is why you're like, eh. So Saul asks his people to find a medium, right? Find a witch for me, and they responded, "Hey, there's one in Endor." Which is kind of funny, but okay. They knew where, they didn't have to go look.
Yeah,
right? They knew where
it was. Look in the phone book, whatever.
Yeah. So is Endor in Israel?
Yes, Endor is in Israel, not too far from Nazareth, actually. So again, up in that northern part near the Valley of Jezreel. So he didn't even have to go there. Now, there's a little bit of some people think it's a little further north than other people. So is it the northern side or is it the southern side? If it's the northern side, if it's actually north, then Saul would have had to go behind Philistine lines to get there. If it's on the southern side, then it was not too far from where he was anyway, and he wouldn't have had to do that.
All right. So he meets with the witch. The witch has no clue who
he's disguised himself.
He is.
Right, yeah.
And he asks her to bring up Samuel, which I'll just say is hilarious from the standpoint of he could have talked to Samuel anytime he wanted to for the past 10, 15 years.
However long while he was alive.
Chose to never talk to him, chose to never follow him when Samuel did come to him, tell him to do something. It was like a complete surprise to him. And now we need Samuel. And he's the only one I need in this world.
Well, God's not talking to me, so maybe Samuel will respond.
Yeah. So the witch conjures up Samuel. She doesn't seem to know who it is at first, right? Just somebody important is coming.
Well, and I don't think that she was actually expecting to get Samuel either.
Right. Then she figures out it's Saul at some point. But Saul's, just this whole thing is weird.
Yeah.
The whole thing is weird.
Yep.
But Samuel tells Saul, look, the Lord's turned away from you.
Yeah.
And you know this, and now you're listening to me? Why would you even bother with me? The Lord has taken your kingdom away and given it to David. And Saul knows that. He said it.
I like the part where Samuel is actually acting like an old guy. He's like, why did you call me up? Why did you bother me? Why did you wake me up?
I was having a nice dream.
But the fact that it was that God allowed Samuel. I mean, this is unprecedented. God actually allowed Samuel to converse with Saul. You can't do that. God doesn't allow that. You can't do that. But and Samuel remembered him. I mean, so this tells us a lot about, there's a lot of doctrine here about the afterlife. Samuel remembered him. He remembered the whole thing. And he's like, like literally you called me back from the dead to tell you that you're an idiot? That this is done? This is over with? Like, I didn't tell you that enough times when I was alive?
Well, then Samuel gives him one more piece of information that Saul didn't know. He says the Lord's going to hand you and Israel over to the Philistines, and that Saul and your sons are going to die.
Which is really interesting because Samuel could not have known that being dead. Yeah. Without God telling. Right. So he would.
So God told him, hey, here's what's going to happen.
So God not just allowed this to happen, but God actually sent him on one more prophetic mission after which is just sort of cool.
Yeah. So in chapter 29, it shifts to David. Yeah. And David and his men were with the Philistine king and the Philistine army, and the Philistine leaders, so not the king, but the leaders.
Well, not just the king of the, not just the ruler of the town, but like all these guys who were sending their armies
they're all
together,
going up as a huge army. They're like, we don't trust this guy. Why? We're not. No.
David has done a really good job of pulling the wool over Achish's eyes, right?
Yeah. So they ask him to leave. So the question really is there any indication if they would have allowed him to go that he would have fought with the Philistines or on the Philistine side
and killed Israelites? I don't see it. That seems so unlikely to me.
Right.
I think he would have done the same thing given the pattern. Right, he was already attacking these other places and not telling the Philistines about it, right? Making them think he was on their side when he wasn't really. I think he would have done the same thing. He would have killed Philistines behind enemy lines. Something.
Yeah, right.
I don't see David killing Israelites in this war.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah. But he didn't go with them.
But he didn't. Yeah, they did. Which, I mean, and they were right.
Yeah, yeah, they were.
I mean, they were right. They're like, isn't this the guy? Saul slayed the thousands and David 10,000s.
Yeah,
they're talking about us.
Yeah. I know.
Why?
You wonder what the king
let,
was thinking.
Yeah, but he's such a nice guy. It's like, okay, David, you had well done. Yeah.
Okay, so David and so everybody's assembling for war now. So
in the north, so David goes all the way back down south again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where he was living.
Yeah.
And the Amalekites take the opportunity to do a raid
while he was
away,
while they were.
Yeah. So and they basically wiped out his city.
Yeah.
That he was living in. So he comes back down. City's burnt.
But didn't kill anybody.
All the people
really
are gone. Yeah, all the people are gone. Right.
Yeah, they did not kill, the Amalekites did not kill anybody. They took them all captive.
Right.
Guess
what happens? So David, of course, goes back and finds them, and they take all the women and animals and all the loot back, which seems to be more loot than they started with.
Yeah. Well, the Amalekites probably wasn't the only place. Yeah,
right.
I mean, they had all of their stuff. Their supplies and everything. So David took everything.
Yeah. So David still has these 600 men. It was a little odd that 200 men said they were too tired and we're going to sit this one out.
Yeah.
So 400 went and got the village back, which seemed to be a small number compared to the Amalekites, the number of the army.
Yeah.
So God is definitely there helping out.
Yeah.
As you would expect, and they got all the wives, all the animals, all the food back, as well as the plunder. And now the big thing was, okay, these 200 guys. Do we pay them?
Yeah.
Right? Should they have part of this plunder? And of course, the 400 are like, they didn't do anything.
Nope.
They don't get anything.
They can have their families back.
Yeah.
But none of the stuff.
And maybe an animal. That's it. But David said, yeah, full share.
Yeah.
So why? Why do you say that?
Well,
And how
because
did that play out?
yeah, I mean, I think David's right. I think first of all, for morale overall, these guys were tired. And it just as easily could have been some of these other guys who definitely would not have wanted to have been on the losing end of that. So I think from a leadership standpoint, I think it was the right thing to do. And he also set a precedent. He said, listen, this is what God gave us. Why wouldn't we share this with our brothers? And in fact, he ended up sending some gifts to some, some others as well. Right. But verse 25 is really interesting because the writer, and whoever the writer was of the books of Samuel, from that time onward, it was a binding ordinance for Israel right up to the present time. If you're part of the team, you win with the team, you lose with the team.
Yep.
Even if you don't...
Even if you're on injured reserve or you're tired.
Yeah, and we do this on our teams today, right? The whole team. Even if you don't play a minute of the entire season, if your team wins, you win.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that David did that with his soldiers, even 3,000 years ago.
Right. Okay, so we get to the last chapter. We know Saul's going to die.
Oh,
and
really?
And Saul dies. First, 3 of his sons are killed, including Jonathan. And so the war is not going well for them. Archers wound Saul. Saul has a choice. He knows he's going to get captured. A king being captured is not a good deal.
Right.
So he asks. I think he asked for somebody to kill him.
Yeah, his armor bearer. He's like, just kill me.
Yeah.
And his armor bearer has the same character as David. From this standpoint,
I can't do that.
I can't do that. My job is to protect you, not kill you. Well,
which you won in an armor bearer until the final moment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so Saul falls on a sword.
Yeah.
Right?
And then the armor bearer does the same thing. Well, if you're going to kill yourself, I'm going to
Well,
kill
nothing's
myself.
going to be good for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus, he's supposed to, not have Saul die.
Right.
So.
Now, what's interesting is, and I mentioned that, if you were to keep reading into 2 Samuel, or when we do a series like this on 2 Samuel, just keep this little point in your mind about the armor bearer. I will not kill you. That does come up again in 2 Samuel. Really interesting. I'm not going to spoil it, but it does come up again in 2 Samuel, where the armor bearer said, I wouldn't do that.
I don't think I'm that far yet. All right. So the men of Israel fled. So now you have these towns that were as part of this army that no one's there. So of course the Philistines take
Just
them
move
over.
right in. Yep. Just move right in.
And that's the end of 1 Samuel.
Yeah, one tiny. It's not tiny.
Oh, that's
Israel,
the complete
but yeah, that's it. They took Saul's body. They chopped off his head. They stuck him up on the wall as a trophy. And when some of the Israelites heard about what they did, they sneaked in overnight and they got Saul's body and his son's body. Said, we're not, we may not like him. He may not be, whatever, but he's still the king. We're not going to let his body be desecrated this way. Got them all, burnt them, which is really interesting. Burnt them and then buried the bones in a proper, a formal, proper burial type thing.
So David from the start was that way with Saul.
Yeah.
Showing him honor, showing him dignity.
Yep, he was still the king that God anointed, and so now.
Well, now there's a mess.
Well, yeah, because 1 Samuel really ends with no king now.
Right.
There's going to have to be a transition period, and again, as you get into 2 Samuel, you see a little bit about how that works out. But right now, technically. Or we'll say, no, technically there is a king. Officially, there's no king. Because David's maybe anointed, but he's not recognized as king yet. And he's not just going to step up and say, I'm king now.
And especially in this case, it'd be one of Saul's sons.
Right.
So we got to find a son that's still alive.
Yep. Yeah. It's real. Politically, it's a disaster. Wartime, just everything.
And their king is now dead. From a war standpoint, demoralize the whole army.
Yep.
How do you raise the army? How do you keep the kingdom going?
Yep. Samuel's dead. Saul's dead.
Yeah.
And David's still on the run.
Right. Yeah, things are not looking
This is not a good place for Israel right now.
Right. Yeah. So
but that brings us to the end of 1
So maybe not a good way to end.
But yeah, hopefully you find this interesting. Hopefully you find some, we talked about some leadership lessons. Obviously, the life of Saul, more things not to do than to do. But hopefully you're learning. If you've got questions, as always, send in your questions and comments. We love fielding those and helping you out a little bit that way. Like and subscribe. And next time we will be back with a new book.
We will.
Yeah. We always like starting new books.
Always, just clean slate.
Yeah. So we'll pick up there and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.